Very good morning, everyone. Dignitaries on the dais and management of Tarun IAS, um, teachers, and most importantly, my young friends who've come from. Thank you. At the outset, I'd like to thank Tarun IAS for this wonderful opportunity and this felicitation and the generous words Mr. Datta and his team had for me. Uh, it does feel great to be securing a good rank, but more than that, I feel it feels better when you see media reports and everything, and they say that you're from Meghalaya. Shillong boy clears IAS, Shillong boy secures rank 52, and more than that, since I am from Shillong, I've been born and brought up here. And most of us would agree that Shillongites are a very proud bunch. We always go outside and we always talk about Shillong, to the point where when I was outside, they named me Shillongite because I'd always continuously talk about the hills and the views and everything. So it does feel proud and does feel privileged to be, taking this name to the country outside. And apart from that, the civil service examination, as days are going by, it's getting difficult. But I feel I took 5 years to clear it. I gave 5 attempts. One attempt was just after my graduation, and then there were 4 serious attempts. But the first thing you need to decide, or first thing you need to think about before you jump into the preparation is to decide why you want to join the civil services. You might have different reasons, and to be honest, most of us are attracted by the perks and the status and the responsibilities it gives us. But more than that, you need to have a very personal reason for why you want to join the service. For me personally, my father was an inspiration. He retired from one of the central civil services, and so I was exposed to his line of working. And I also had the privilege of interacting with a few officers of the service. And from that, I realized that there is no other career that gives diversity. That reports a diversity of working conditions like the civil services does. And of course, I have no one to say it right now. I'm right at the threshold of entering the service. But from what I've read, from what we've all read in the media, this is what was my personal motivation. And since the exam, as ma'am and the others have said, entails a very long period of preparation. At least it's 2 years, because 1 year you prepare and then there's 1 year of the exam itself. So you need to have a very strong personal reason for why you want to give two or more of my most valuable years of youth to this exam. But that said, I would like to delve into a bit technical points of the services, since we have a majority of the young crowd here. Most of you would probably be knowing that civil services, of course, has 3 stages: the preliminary, the mains, and the interview. And recently we had the preliminary stage, and I don't know if there's anyone here who's appeared for it. Is there anyone? Can you just raise your hands? No, there. Alright. Anyway, so if you want to prepare for the civil services, the first thing I would ask you to do is to just go through your preliminary papers in the past, I think, at least 5-6 years. That will give you an idea of what exactly this exam demands. Because despite there being other government exams, recruitment exams, banks have their exams, and SSC and all these things, the civil service examination requires a very specific skill set, and the questions, especially the way they've been turning out now, they require a very specific way of thinking, apart from the knowledge base, which of course you'll be covering with your books and your notes. And if some of you join your coaching centers, they would give you some notes. But apart from that, the thinking process has to be very clear. And prelims especially, it requires, apart from the knowledge, it requires some elimination skills. And those skills, you need to develop them through practice. And there has to be someone who actually, mentors them, mentors you and tells you about them. Because even if you read 10 books and you revise them 10 times, unless you know how to eliminate options in your prelims paper, you will not be able to clear it. Unfortunately, because the exam has become so difficult and the options have become so confusing, if I may use the word, that you need to know these skills. So for prelims, not just for prelims, actually for all the 3 stages of the exam, you need to have you need to have synergy between the preparation phases. Of course, every stage has its own requirement, but you can't work in silos. You can't just say, okay, till this date I will prepare for prelims, and then from here on I'll prepare for mains, and after I clear mains I'll prepare for interview. That is not how it works. You need to have a holistic plan of preparation. And of course, tune it to the specific demands of the stage you're at. So initially when you start, probably you will be focusing more on the prelims. And for prelims, you need to focus on the facts. And by facts, the way the paper is going now, you just can't read something in the book and just memorize it, write it down. You revise, even if you revise it 10 times, that is not how it works. Suppose you see something about 5G technology in the newspaper. It's not just enough to know that India has introduced 5G technology from say IIT Madras or some institute. You need to Google 5G technology and you need to see what exactly this technology is, because the questions are deep. They are getting deep now. And for that you need to, at least go back. At least Wikipedia should be a primary source of information. Now it is a lot of work, I feel, but that gives you an upper edge over people who just going through the newspaper, just making notes from the newspaper. So this would be your strategy for prelims. Of course, you have the standard books. There are very few well-known books which all aspirants use. But more than that, you have to also go to the background. So if you read something in the book, it is very essential that you're curious about what you study in your books. In my prelims exams, I had many questions which I could solve from watching YouTube videos, because I love watching travel vlogs. And there are questions which come from such obscure topics that you will only come across in National Geographic or things like that. So the mantra would be to be curious and document your curiosity. If you come across something interesting, be it in a magazine, be it in YouTube, be it even in conversation with friends, just write it down. Make it a habit of writing everything down. So that would be for prelims. And for mains, again, the first and most important choice, most important thing you need to do is to make a choice of your optional subject. Like Shruti had said, and ma'am had also elaborated on this, there is no one-size-fits-all approach for optional. Primarily, we use a couple of things to judge an optional subject. One, of course, is your familiarity with the subject. Second is your interest, because if you're not interested in a particular subject, you will not be able to sustain talking about it or studying about it for 2 years. Then, of course, most important would be the availability of materials, because you can't choose. There are many, it's a list of I think 18, 19 subjects, and there are subjects which sound very interesting. But if you don't get materials and easily accessible materials, it's very difficult to study, and you have to study from an exam point of view. You can't just do it the way you study for your graduation, because the exam, the mains exam, they ask you application-based questions. They don't ask you bookish questions. So that's there, and of course guidance is required. So most aspirants, they at least for their optional subject, they try to seek some amount of guidance. I had my optional subject as agriculture. And since I'm a biotech graduate, I had the privilege of interacting with my college professors, and I worked in the field of plant biotechnology for quite some time. I had my research thesis on plant biotech. So that gave me an edge in the agriculture part, especially the scientific part. So these are the things you need to take care when you choose your optional subject. And once your optional subject is done, your general studies is the same for all people. So in the civil service examination, there's a saying that your GS papers is the armor you wear, and your optional subject is the weapon. So your GS will prevent you from getting a low combined total marks. But if you want to score well, you have to be good with your optional subject. That is the only way you can aim for a top rank. So once you choose your optional subject, the GS part is of course material is easily available. You can even get it from Shillong, Guwahati, and of course Delhi is there. And on YouTube as well, there are many subject experts who have a lot of things to say. And of course, institutes like Tarun IAS now, they plan to provide you specific guidance for GS. So keeping that in mind, you have to integrate your prelims and mains preparation. Suppose you come across a particular fact for prelims, you need to know the background, and for mains you need to know, the ifs and whys and hows of a particular subject. So that's it. And of course, after your mains, you go for the interview. And again, on YouTube, there are a lot of channels which publish these so-called mock interviews, and there is a general perception that IAS interview is something very crazy. They ask you things like how many stairs do you climb to come up to this room and things like that. It's not like that. They don't ask you any question which is extraordinary. And in my experience this time, I had a very good interview experience. And they actually want to have a conversation with you. And they make it clear at the very beginning that we just want to have a conversation. And I was lucky enough to have a member who was from the Northeast. And I had a very good conversation with that member. And I had 193 marks in my interview this time. So it is very essential once you reach up to the interview stage to know about the region you belong to. You need to be very thorough with the problems, you need to be thorough with the good things. Of course, if you're from Meghalaya, you need to know about the tribes, the culture. But at the same time, you also need to know about the problems. And they will ask you problems which are, not comfortable, things that we don't usually talk about. They will ask you and they will judge your reaction, they will judge how you approach those questions. So it's very essential to have a nuanced view on things, and it's very essential to have your opinions based by facts, backed by facts. And that is essential not just for your interview, it's also essential for your mains. You can't just write a statement and just end it there. So like in mains, suppose you make a statement, you also need to substantiate by saying, okay, in so and so report or this in this committee, this is what they said. So get in the habit of getting to the depth of things that you study. This would be for mains and interview. And apart from that, these are the technical parts. And apart from that, if you're starting for the civil service examinations, it is very essential to focus on your mental health, because most students, they, like I said, 2 years is the bare minimum. After that, also you might have to give it. So it is very essential that you focus on your mental health. You know where you're lacking, and you know when to pause, because I had said in one of my interviews as well, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and it's very essential to know when to stop, when to pause. And it is also essential to have a very close-knit group of friends. I was fortunate enough that in these last 2 years during COVID, most of my friends from school who were working outside the metros, they were here, they were working from home, and they provided a very good support system to me. So after a long week of studying, intensive studying, weekends would be for drives, or just going to someone's place and just talking and getting away from the grind of UPSC for a few hours. So it is very essential for you to be having a good set of friends, your family. It's essential for you to be having someone you can confide in. It can be your partner, it can be your best friend. But it's very essential to have someone you can talk to when you're not feeling well. But it is also essential to have such a person who will guide you and who will, help you get back on track. You can't just, dance to a person and that person supports you. That's not how it works. The other person also has to support you and, push you forward. So you need to make a very good choice of friends. So that is essential, and I think knowing people and knowing how to interact with people is a major part of this service. So you start very young in this case. Apart from that, again, I would say if you want to start preparing for the civil services, you need to develop a well-rounded awareness, and you need to be curious about things. The technical parts, of course, come later, but again, you need to be sure of why you want to join the civil services and be aware of the country and the region you're living in, because that is essential. You can't bluff your way in the exam. With that, thank you very much, and wishing you all the best. I really hope we have more people from Meghalaya and more people from Shillong who join the services, and looking forward to that. Thank you.